It'll never go away. Debanking will never go away. I'm convinced till the day I die there will be debanking stories. I wish that wasn't the case. It just seems that things just aren't getting any better. Well, the Institute of Economic Affairs have produced a report today. I'm joined by Dr. Jamie Whyte, Senior Research Fellow. And you've been looking, Jamie, in particular at money laundering, the money laundering regulations. Now, all this stuff, I think we've had 4 major waves of legislation on money laundering. The last lot, and this is important, came in 2017. It was agreed as members of the European Union. It was brought in after the Brexit vote. From what I can understand, nothing has been done to change it.
No, nothing has been done, and I think you're right. Nothing probably will be done. I mean, one of the
let's
sad things about my job is you write these things and you think, well, I'm pretty sure I'm right here, but also pretty sure nothing will happen. I mean, the origins of all this are not the European Union, though it has all been done through it in the end. It's actually a G7, it was set up by the G7 in 1989. It's called FATFA, the Financial Action Task Force. And they issue all these recommendations about how to fight financial crime. And basically the European Union and Britain are following its recommendations. And its recommendations are basically that a legal obligation be placed on banks that they must act effectively as a police force to detect and identify financial crime, and in particular money laundering. Now, if they fail to live up to the expectations of the Financial Conduct Authority in Britain, they face fines in the billions.
Yeah.
Now, this means that a customer who's on the face of it may be a little dodgy, which requires nothing more than the fact that you deposit cash.
Or one odd payment or whatever. Yeah.
Or have dealings with certain foreign countries. They might be completely legitimate dealings, but that gives a kind of red flag. And then the bank, it could investigate it to find out if you really are a financial criminal or not.
But that costs a fortune.
It costs a lot of money, and your account might not be worth very much. So the economic logic from the bank's point of view is shut the account down. Because if they do that, they're in the clear. If they don't do that, they're running a huge risk. So I put it in an article I've written on this. Imagine that the government placed on everybody an obligation to detect if their friends were criminals. Because you know your friends quite well, you're in a good position to do it, aren't you? And if you don't do it up to scratch, we'll fine you £100,000. What would happen? Well, I'd get rid of all my friends who I was absolutely sure were legit, right? And that's exactly the logic of this situation.
It is crazy. And one of the stats that I've given the viewers here at GB News is that for every £1 that is recovered, money laundering that is recovered in the UK system, the compliance cost is £100. And you've produced a stat today that I hadn't seen, that for every 1 conviction for money laundering, 169 accounts.
Right.
So how many? Just bring us up to speed on numbers.
Okay. So the number of a study was done following your scandal, looking into account closures, what causes them, how many are there, and so on. Well, the number of closures in the last year for which data is available, 2022, was 343,000 accounts were closed. Now, sometimes there's nothing in it. They're just dormant accounts and nobody's using them. But in half of the cases, roughly, it's because the bank couldn't satisfy itself that you weren't involved in financial crime. So it's 170,000 accounts. There are about 1,000 convictions for money laundering. So you've got 170,000 people being punished.
Yeah.
Effectively, they're being punished.
Yeah.
Only 1,000 are actually found guilty.
And it's so bad for small business, particularly, isn't it?
Well, it hits small business because of the economic logic I pointed out. If you're a big business, it's worth it to the bank to sort it out because your account is worth a lot to them. If you're a small business, your account's not worth much. It's not worth their while to sort it out.
It is. We've had promises, Jamie. I've had personal promises from the government, even the FCA, not that I think much of them, have made promises. Are we any nearer change?
No, not that I can see. And the reason I'm doubtful is because the change that's required is to lighten the regulatory burden on the banks. Can you imagine a politician today going saying, I'm about to lighten the regulatory burden on banks? They want to bash banks.
Because they'll say that's what caused the crash in 2008, and even though it's not actually technically quite true. But there's a new Labour government coming in, possibly. Perhaps they'll sort it all out for us.
Yes, I would love to think that that's true. I mean, there's a tiny chance. I mean, for example, this does hit the little guy much harder than the big guy. And the Labour Party is supposed to care about the little guy.
Well, I tell you what, let's, Jamie, let's keep
not hold our
on
breath.
that point, but not hold our breath. Thank you very much.